Imagine standing on top of a massive stone wall. The wind howls across the mountains. Below you are deep valleys, endless forests, and rugged desert landscapes. In one direction, the wall disappears over distant hills. In the other, it continues beyond the horizon. For centuries, people have looked at this incredible structure and asked the same question. Why was the Great Wall of China built? Was it created to stop an unstoppable enemy? Did millions of workers die building it? Can it really be seen from space? And perhaps the biggest question of all, who actually built the Great Wall? Because the real story is far more complicated than most people imagine. The Great Wall was not built by one emperor. It was not constructed in a single century, and it was not even one continuous wall. Instead, it is the result of more than 2,000 years of war, fear, ambition, engineering, migration, and political power. This is the real story behind one of the greatest structures ever created by human civilization. This is the story of the Great Wall of China. When most people hear the words Great Wall of China, they imagine the enormous stone wall that winds dramatically through the mountains near Beijing. But the origins of the Great Wall go much further back. More than 2,500 years ago, China was not one unified empire. Instead, the land was divided among numerous competing kingdoms and states. This was a dangerous and violent period of Chinese history. Powerful states fought constantly for land, resources, and survival. Cities needed protection, borders needed protection, and rulers were terrified of invasion. So, long before there was a single Great Wall, different Chinese states began constructing their own defensive walls. These early walls were often made from packed earth. Workers would place layers of soil and gravel inside wooden frames. Then they would repeatedly pound the material until it became incredibly hard. This technique, known as rammed earth construction, could create surprisingly strong structures. Some of these ancient walls stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They were not beautiful monuments. They were military defenses. Their purpose was simple: to slow down enemies, to control movement, and to protect valuable territory. Different kingdoms built walls against each other, but they also built walls along their northern borders. Beyond those borders lived powerful groups of nomadic and semi-nomadic peoples. These communities were highly mobile. They depended heavily on horses, and they could move quickly across enormous distances. For agricultural societies, this created a serious military problem. A farming village could not simply pack up and move. A city could not run away. Fields, homes, roads, and granaries were fixed in one location. Nomadic cavalry forces, however, could strike quickly and disappear across open grasslands. Walls became one way of changing that equation. A wall could not stop an entire army forever, but it could slow down movement. It could force attackers toward guarded gates. It could give defenders time to send warnings, and it could make surprise attacks more difficult. These early defensive systems would eventually become the foundation for something much larger, something that would change Chinese history forever. But first, China itself had to change, because in the 3rd century BCE, a single ruler would accomplish what generations of kings had failed to do. He would unite China, and his name would become legendary. Qin Shi Huang, in 221 BCE, after centuries of conflict, the state of Qin defeated its rivals. For the first time, a vast portion of what we now recognize as China came under the control of one ruler. That ruler was Qin Shi Huang. His achievement was extraordinary. He did not simply conquer neighboring states, he transformed them into a centralized empire. He standardized systems of writing. He introduced standardized weights and measurements. He improved roads and administration, and he created a powerful government capable of controlling enormous territories. But uniting the empire created a new problem. Now, instead of many separate states defending their own borders, the Qin Empire had to defend a massive northern frontier. To the north were powerful groups of horse-riding peoples. The Qin government feared raids and invasions. Qin Shi Huang's solution was ambitious. Existing walls built by earlier states would be connected, expanded, and strengthened. The result was a massive defensive system stretching across northern China. This is one of the reasons Qin Shi Huang is so strongly connected to the Great Wall. But here is something important. The wall built during the Qin Dynasty was not the famous stone and brick structure most tourists visit today. Much of it was built. From rammed earth, local soil, wood, and other available materials. In some regions, builders used layers of earth. In others, they used stone. Construction depended heavily on the local environment. The wall was not one identical structure. It changed according to geography. Mountains provided natural defenses. Deserts required different techniques. Grasslands created different military challenges. The Qin government essentially created a vast network of walls, fortifications, watchtowers, roads, and military positions. But building such a system required an enormous amount of labor. And this is where the story becomes darker. The Great Wall is often described as one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements, and it is. But it was also built during periods when governments had enormous power over ordinary people. Labor could be demanded by the state. Soldiers could be assigned to construction, convicts could be sent to work, and civilians could be forced into difficult and dangerous conditions. Construction often took place far from major population centers. Workers had to travel through mountains, deserts, and isolated regions. Food and supplies had to be transported across long distances. Extreme weather was a constant threat. Winter temperatures could be deadly. Summer heat could be brutal. Disease was another danger. Accidents happened. Workers suffered from exhaustion. And many undoubtedly died during different periods of wall construction. Over time, stories and legends emerged, claiming that enormous numbers of workers were buried inside the Great Wall itself. The idea became deeply connected to popular stories about the monument. But historians are careful about repeating dramatic numbers without evidence. The exact number of people who died building the various walls is impossible to know. What we do know is that the construction of these enormous defensive systems demanded tremendous human labor and caused real suffering. For ordinary people, imperial projects could be devastating. The Great Wall was not simply a symbol of national pride. For many workers, it represented state power. A distant emperor could order construction, but ordinary people provided the labor. And sometimes they paid the price. One famous Chinese legend captures this human tragedy. It is the story of Ming Dynasty. According to the legend, her husband was forced to work on the Great Wall. He died during construction. Ming Dynasty traveled to find him. When she learned of his death, she cried so intensely that part of the wall collapsed, revealing his remains. Whether historically accurate or not, the story became a powerful symbol. It represented grief. It represented the suffering of ordinary people. And it reminded generations that behind great monuments are often countless human lives. But Qin Shi Huang would not live long enough to see his empire survive. The Qin dynasty collapsed only a few years after his death. And with its fall, the story of the Great Wall entered a new chapter. After the Qin dynasty collapsed, China eventually came under the control of the Han dynasty. The Han would become one of the most influential dynasties in Chinese history. And under the Han, the northern frontier remained a major concern. The Chinese empire faced powerful nomadic confederations, particularly the Xiongnu. These groups controlled large areas of the northern steppe. They possessed highly mobile cavalry forces, and conflict between the Han Empire and northern peoples would shape Chinese military strategy for generations. The Han did not simply inherit the Qin walls. They expanded defensive systems dramatically. Walls were built or strengthened across vast distances. Military garrisons were established. Watchtowers appeared across isolated landscapes, and communication networks connected frontier positions. The Great Wall was becoming something more complex than a simple barrier. It was part of an entire military infrastructure. Imagine being a soldier stationed on the frontier thousands of years ago. You are far from the capital. You are surrounded by harsh landscapes. Your job is not only to fight. You must watch. You must report. You must maintain supplies. You must monitor movement. If danger approaches, speed becomes critical. A watchtower could send a signal: smoke during the day, fire at night. Other towers could see the warning and pass it along. In theory, information could travel across long distances far faster than a single messenger on horseback. The Great Wall was therefore an ancient communication network. It was a border, a military zone, a transportation system, and a symbol of imperial control. The Han Dynasty also pushed Chinese influence westward. This expansion connected China to the trade networks that later became known as the Silk Road. Protecting trade routes became increasingly important. Fortifications and military settlements helped secure strategic areas. The frontier was not simply a line separating civilization from wilderness. It was a zone of trade, cultural exchange, migration, diplomacy, and warfare. People crossed it. Goods crossed it. Ideas crossed it. The Great Wall was supposed to control movement. But it could never completely stop human movement, and that fact would become increasingly important, because walls, no matter how large, cannot solve every military problem. This is one of the biggest questions in the history of the Great Wall. Did it actually protect China? The answer is complicated. A wall is not magical. An army can attack a gate, it can climb over certain sections, it can find a weak point, it can bribe officials, it can capture a fortress, or it can simply go around the defenses. The Great Wall did not make China impossible to invade. In fact, throughout Chinese history, northern armies repeatedly crossed the frontier and conquered parts of China. So why build the wall? Because military defense is not always about creating an impenetrable barrier. A wall changes the battlefield. Imagine a fast-moving cavalry force traveling across open land. Without defenses, it may have many possible routes. But a wall with fortified gates creates obstacles. The attackers are forced towards specific crossing points. Defenders know where those important points are. Soldiers can be stationed there. Supplies can be stored there. Communication systems can be organized there. The wall therefore acted as a tool of control. It controlled movement. It slowed down raids. It protected settlements. It created strategic choke points. And it allowed the government to monitor who entered and left the empire. The Great Wall was also connected to customs and trade. Important gates became centers of economic activity. Merchants passed through them. Taxes and duties could be collected. Officials could inspect travelers. The wall was not simply designed to keep people out. It was designed to manage movement. And this is one of the most important truths about the Great Wall. It was a system, not just a wall. When we imagine a single continuous line running across China, we are simplifying something much more complicated. The historical reality included walls, towers, fortresses, military camps, beacon towers, roads, passes, gates, and natural barriers. Mountains and rivers were also part of the defensive strategy. The Great Wall was really an enormous military landscape, and that landscape changed over time. Different dynasties built new sections. Some repaired older sections. Others abandoned them. Some walls disappeared entirely. Others survived for centuries. Then, many centuries after Qin Shi Huang, another dynasty would build the sections that became the most famous in the world, the Ming Dynasty. When people picture the Great Wall of China, they usually imagine huge stone walls climbing steep mountain ridges. Many of those famous sections were built or rebuilt during the Ming Dynasty. The Ming ruled China from 1368 to 1644. Their relationship with the northern frontier was deeply shaped by conflict. In 1449, the Ming suffered a major military disaster when the emperor was captured during a campaign against the Oirat Mongols. The event shocked the empire. Northern threats remained a serious concern. Over time, the Ming government invested heavily in frontier defenses, and this is when the Great Wall took on much of the appearance we recognize today. Unlike many earlier walls made primarily from rammed earth, the Ming used large quantities of brick and stone in strategically important regions. This made sections of the wall stronger and more durable. The wall climbed mountains. It followed ridges. It crossed valleys. It connected to major passes and fortresses. Construction was adapted to the terrain. In mountainous areas, builders could use the landscape itself as part of the defense. Why build a wall through a nearly impossible mountain? Because the mountain was already an obstacle. The wall simply strengthened the natural barrier. Some sections appear to flow across the landscape like a giant dragon, but that image hides the incredible engineering challenge behind the construction. Stone had to be cut, bricks had to be produced, materials had to be transported, workers had to operate in remote locations, water and food had to be supplied. The logistics were enormous. The Ming Great Wall was also filled with watchtowers and defensive structures. These towers provided elevated positions for observation. Some were used for communication, others stored weapons and supplies. Different sections had different designs depending on military needs. The wall itself could be wide enough in some places for soldiers and horses to move along the top. This allowed defenders to respond more quickly to threats. Major passes became heavily fortified. Perhaps the most famous was Jiayuguan, located at the western end of the Ming Great Wall. Another important area was Shanhaiguan, where the wall met the sea. These strategic locations became gateways between different worlds. If you controlled the pass, you controlled movement, and controlling movement meant controlling power. For the Ming Dynasty, the Great Wall represented a massive investment in security. But there was a problem. The wall could only be effective if the empire remained politically and militarily strong enough to defend it, and eventually, the Ming Dynasty faced a crisis that no wall could completely solve. By the 17th century, the Ming Dynasty was facing serious internal problems. The government struggled with financial difficulties. Corruption weakened administration. Rebellions emerged. Military pressures increased. At the same time, a powerful new force was rising beyond the northeastern frontier. The Manchus. In 1644, rebel forces captured Beijing. The Ming Emperor died. China was thrown into chaos. At a critical moment, Ming General Wu Sangui faced an impossible situation. He controlled the important Shanhaiguan Pass. Behind him was the advancing rebel army. Beyond the wall was the Manchu military force. Wu Sangui made a decision that would change Chinese history. He opened the way for the Manchu forces. Together they defeated the rebels. But the Manchus did not simply help restore the Ming Dynasty. They established their own rule, the Qing Dynasty. The Great Wall had not been smashed by a massive army charging through every section. Instead, political decisions, internal rebellion, and military alliances changed the situation. This is an important lesson. Walls can be powerful, but political instability can make even the strongest defenses irrelevant. The Qing dynasty would eventually control a much larger territory than the Ming. The old Ming Wall was no longer the same kind of frontier. The empire had expanded beyond it, and gradually, the Great Wall lost much of its original military importance. The wall remained, but history moved on. Some sections were maintained, others were abandoned. Weather slowly damaged them. Villages sometimes reused bricks and stones for construction. Plants grew across the walls. Sand buried some sections. Time began reclaiming the structure. For centuries, much of the Great Wall was not treated as the international symbol it is today. That transformation would come much later. Perhaps the most famous myth about the Great Wall is the claim that it can be seen from space with the naked eye. You may have heard it in school. You may have seen it in documentaries. Some people have even called it the only human-made object visible from the moon, but that is not true. From the moon, the Great Wall is far too narrow to be seen with the naked eye. Even from low Earth orbit, visibility depends on conditions. The wall can be difficult to distinguish from the surrounding landscape because its colors often blend into the environment. Astronauts using cameras and special conditions may be able to photograph parts of it, but the idea that the Great Wall is clearly visible from the moon is a myth. So why did people believe it? Partly because the Great Wall is almost impossible to imagine. Its scale feels so enormous that people naturally assume it must be visible from space. But length and visibility are not the same thing. The Great Wall is incredibly long, but it is also relatively narrow. Imagine drawing a long, thin line across a massive landscape. From a great enough distance, the line becomes impossible to see. The myth itself tells us something interesting. The Great Wall has become more than a historical structure. It has become a symbol of human achievement. People want to believe it is so enormous that it can be seen from another world. The reality may be less dramatic, but it is still extraordinary, because you do not need to see the Great Wall from the moon to understand how remarkable it is. You only need to stand beside. Another question seems simple but has a complicated answer. How long is the Great Wall? For a long time, people gave different estimates. This happened because the Great Wall is not one single structure. Do you count only the Ming walls? Do you include earlier walls? Do you count trenches? Do you include natural barriers? What about walls that have almost disappeared? Modern archaeological and historical surveys have attempted to measure the full system of walls and associated defensive structures built across different periods. The result is astonishing. The total length of the Great Wall system is commonly measured at more than 21,000 kilometers when different branches and associated defensive works are included. That number is difficult to understand. It is not simply a straight wall from one point to another. It is a network. Some parts run parallel, some sections branch off, some follow mountains, some cross deserts. Others exist only as faint traces in the earth. The Great Wall stretches through a remarkable variety of environments: deserts, grasslands, mountains, forests, plateaus, and agricultural regions. This diversity is one reason the wall is so fascinating. It is not one architectural object. It is a collection of different engineering solutions created across different landscapes and different centuries. In one place, the wall may be made of carefully fitted bricks. In another, it may be packed earth. Elsewhere, it may be little more than a raised line disappearing into the desert. The Great Wall is therefore not frozen in time. It is a historical record. Every section tells a different story. For centuries, Chinese empires built defensive systems along their northern frontiers. But it would be a mistake to imagine a simple story of China versus outsiders. The regions beyond the wall were filled with different peoples, cultures, kingdoms, and political groups. Relationships constantly changed. Sometimes there was war. Sometimes there was trade. Sometimes alliances formed, sometimes different. Groups served in Chinese armies. Sometimes people crossed the frontier and settled within the empire. And sometimes Chinese governments expanded beyond the walls. The frontier was not a permanent dividing line between two completely separate worlds. It was a place of interaction. Merchants exchanged horses, silk, tea, metals, and other goods. Diplomats negotiated. Families migrated. Soldiers fought. Cultures influenced each other. The Great Wall was intended to create order, but the frontier itself was constantly changing. This is one reason the history of the wall is so complex. You cannot understand it simply by looking at the bricks. You have to understand the people. For the farmer, the wall might represent protection. For the soldier, it might represent a difficult military posting. For the merchant, it could represent a border crossing. For the emperor, it represented security and authority. For someone forced to build it, it could represent suffering. And for the people living beyond it, the wall represented the expanding power of Chinese states. The same structure meant different things to different people. That complexity is part of its real story. Over the centuries, the Great Wall became filled with mysteries. Archaeologists have discovered forgotten sections. Researchers have mapped walls buried beneath sand. Remote sensing and satellite technology have helped identify traces of ancient fortifications. Some sections are famous and carefully restored. Others are crumbling in remote locations. In certain areas, only foundations remain. In others, corrosion has nearly erased the structure. This creates an unusual situation. The Great Wall is both one of the most famous monuments on Earth and one of the least understood in its entirety. There are sections that millions of tourists visit every year, and there are sections that very few people will ever see. The Great Wall also contains countless archaeological clues: old military, settlements, artifacts, inscriptions, remains of roads, defensive towers, storage areas. All of these help historians reconstruct life on the frontier. Imagine being stationed in a remote watchtower. Your daily life would be very different from the glamorous image presented. In modern tourism advertisements, you would have to survive harsh weather. You would need food. You would need fuel. You would wait for long periods. You might never see an enemy, or suddenly, you might receive a warning. Smoke appears on a distant ridge. Another tower responds, then another. The frontier is alive. Soldiers prepare. Messengers move. Gates. Close, the wall becomes part of a massive defensive machine. This was the real purpose of the Great Wall, not simply to stand there, but to function. Today, several sections of the Great Wall have become internationally famous. One of the best known is Badaling, near Beijing. It is heavily restored and easily accessible. For many visitors, Badaling represents the image of the Great Wall they have seen in photographs. Another famous section is Mutianyu, known for its dramatic scenery and impressive towers. Then there is Jinshanling, where visitors can experience a mixture of restored and more weathered sections. Farther west, the landscape changes dramatically. The wall reaches into regions where deserts and mountains dominate the horizon. At Jiayuguan, one of the most famous passes, the Great Wall historically marked an important western gateway of the Ming Empire. At the eastern end, Shanhaiguan stands near the Bohai Sea. It became one of the most strategically important gates in Chinese history. These locations show something important. The Great Wall is not one experience. Every section is different. A restored wall near Beijing can feel like a giant monument. A remote, ruined section can feel almost invisible. A desert wall can appear as a faint line across an empty landscape. The Great Wall changes with geography, and that makes it feel almost alive. Considering its age, it is remarkable that any part of the Great Wall still exists. Some sections are more than 1,000 years old. Others date to the Ming Dynasty. Many earlier structures have disappeared completely. So why did some sections survive? One reason is construction. Stone and brick are more durable than wood or loosely packed. Soil climate also matters. Dry environments can preserve earthen structures better than wet regions, but survival is also connected to human choices. Some sections were restored, others were protected, and eventually, the Great Wall became recognized as a major part of China's cultural heritage. The wall became a national symbol. It appeared in art, literature, education, tourism, and international media. In 1987, the Great Wall was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This recognition helped strengthen international awareness of its importance. But preservation is still a challenge. Millions of visitors can create pressure on popular sections. Natural erosion continues. Rain, wind, temperature changes, and vegetation can slowly damage old structures. Some remote areas remain vulnerable. Protecting the Great Wall is not as simple as preserving one building. The structure stretches across enormous distances. Different sections face different threats, and the wall itself is still changing. In some places, restoration is necessary. But restoration creates another challenge. How much should be rebuilt? If a section is rebuilt too heavily, does it still represent the original historical structure? If it is left untouched, should we allow nature to destroy it? Preservation requires difficult decisions. The Great Wall may be ancient, but its story is still continuing. Today, the Great Wall means something very different from what it meant to the soldiers who once guarded it. It has become one of the most recognizable symbols of China. It represents endurance, strength, history, and national identity. But the symbolism can sometimes hide the complicated reality. The Great Wall was not built by one civilization in one moment. It was created through centuries of political change. Different dynasties built different sections, different workers used different materials, different governments had different military goals. The wall was sometimes expanded, sometimes abandoned, sometimes crossed, sometimes defeated, and sometimes made irrelevant by changes in political borders. That is what makes the Great Wall so fascinating. It is not a perfect symbol of permanent strength. It is actually evidence of how often history changes. Empires rise, empires fall, borders move, enemies become allies, allies become enemies, and walls that once defined the edge of an empire can eventually stand in the middle of a larger one. The Great Wall teaches us that no border is permanent. No empire lasts forever, and no structure, no matter how massive, can completely control the future. Today, millions of people dream of visiting the Great Wall. They climb its steep steps, they take photographs, they look across the mountains and imagine ancient armies marching through the valleys. For modern visitors, The wall is a destination. For ancient soldiers, it was a workplace. For laborers, it could be a place of hardship. For merchants, it was a checkpoint. For emperors, it was a military project. The same wall has lived many different lives. Tourism has helped bring global attention to the monument, but it has also created challenges. Popular sections must be managed carefully. Large numbers of visitors can damage fragile areas. Authorities and conservation experts have to balance accessibility with protection. Some people want to see the wild, unrestored sections. Others prefer safe and restored areas. Both experiences reveal different parts of the wall's story. A restored section shows us the scale and engineering of the monument. A ruined section reminds us of time. It reminds us that even stone can disappear. When people ask, who built the Great Wall of China, they often expect a simple answer. Maybe Qin Shi Huang, maybe the Ming Dynasty, maybe millions of workers. The truth is that all of these answers are incomplete. The Great Wall was built by generations. It was created by soldiers, laborers, convicts, engineers, craftsmen, farmers, government officials, and entire communities supporting the enormous logistics behind construction. It was expanded by different dynasties. The Qin connected and expanded earlier defensive walls. The Han extended frontier systems. Other dynasties constructed their own defenses, and the Ming built many of the famous brick and stone sections that dominate our modern image. The Great Wall is therefore not the creation of a single person. It is the result of an entire civilization responding to changing threats over centuries, and perhaps that is the most incredible part. The Great Wall was not built according to one master plan. It evolved, it adapted, it changed, it was rebuilt. Expanded, destroyed, abandoned, and rediscovered. The Great Wall is a monument to human persistence, but it is also a monument to human fear. Fear of invasion, fear of instability, fear of losing control. Every brick and stone represents an attempt to create security in an uncertain world. And that is something humanity still understands today. The history of the Great Wall raises an important question. Can a wall truly protect a civilization? The answer is yes, and no doubt a wall can provide military advantages. It can slow attackers. It can control strategic locations. It can help governments monitor borders. But walls cannot solve internal problems. They cannot stop corruption. They cannot prevent political collapse. They cannot guarantee loyalty. They cannot eliminate rebellion. The Ming Dynasty learned this lesson in the 17th century. One of the strongest and most sophisticated wall systems in history could not save a government facing crisis from within. The wall was still standing, but the political world around it had changed. And when that happened, the wall's purpose changed too. This is why the Great Wall is more than an engineering achievement. It is a lesson in history. Power is never based on one structure. An empire depends on people, economics, politics, military organization, technology, leadership, and stability. A wall can support an empire, but it cannot replace one. The Great Wall has survived war, weather, political revolutions, and centuries of change, but its future is not guaranteed. Climate, erosion, development, tourism, and natural decay all present challenges. Some sections are carefully preserved, others continue to disappear. Modern technology is helping researchers document the wall in ways that earlier generations could never imagine. Satellite imagery, drones, digital mapping, archaeological surveys, three-dimensional scanning. These tools can help create detailed records of sections that may one day be lost. In the future, historians may understand the Great Wall even better than we do today. New discoveries may reveal forgotten routes, hidden towers, lost settlements, or clues about the people who lived and worked along the frontier. The story is not finished, and perhaps it never will be, because every generation sees the Great Wall differently. For ancient emperors, it was defense. For soldiers, it was duty. For workers, it was labor. For merchants, it was a border. For modern China, it is heritage. For the rest of the world, it is one of the greatest symbols of human history. But beneath every interpretation lies the same reality. The Great Wall was built by human hands. The Great Wall of China is one of the most extraordinary structures ever built, but its real story is not as simple as the legend. It was not built in one lifetime. It was not built by one emperor. It was not a single, unbroken wall. And it was never completely impossible to cross. Instead, the Great Wall was a constantly evolving system of defenses built over more than 2,000 years. It began with competing states trying to protect themselves. It expanded under powerful empires. It developed into a vast network of walls, towers, forts, roads, and communication systems. It witnessed wars, trade, migration, political betrayal, imperial collapse, and the rise of new dynasties. Millions of people lived and worked in its shadow. Some built it, some defended it, some crossed it, and some fought to control it. Today, when we see the Great Wall stretching across the mountains, it is easy to think of it as a single object, but it is actually something much greater. It is a timeline made of earth, stone, and brick. It tells the story of ancient kingdoms. It tells the story of powerful emperors. It tells the story of ordinary workers. And it tells the story of humanity's endless attempt to create security in an unpredictable world. The Great Wall survived because it became more than a military defense. It became a symbol of ambition, a symbol of sacrifice, a symbol of endurance. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: even the greatest wall in history could not stop history itself. Empires changed, borders moved, new rulers came to power. And the purpose of the wall disappeared, yet the wall remained, silent, winding across mountains and deserts, a reminder of the people who dreamed of protecting an empire, and the generations who left behind one of the greatest marks humanity has ever made upon the earth. The Great Wall of China is not just a wall, it is the story of a civilization, written across the landscape for more than 2,000 years, and even today, its story is still being discovered. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories from the past. Because history is not just about what happened, it is about the stories that still shape our world today.